Is your firewall an open gate to your network?
Hey, Kim, I'm curious about the story you have for us today.
Yeah, so Stan, there's a Germany-based cybersecurity company called Genua, which they have multiple products, security products, and most of which are firewall-based. Security researchers just found on the 29th of January, they found that their login interface of the Genugate high resistance firewall was susceptible to attacks. So the Genua two-tier firewall, which it includes an application level gateway and a packet filter for blocking malicious data, their login interface was vulnerable. So these security researchers were able to do HTTP posts to the interfaces in order to log in as root, as an arbitrary user, and have high privileges once they log in. But the great thing about it is that there's a caveat that it wasn't exploited by hackers, and other hackers didn't know about it. But the security researchers found it before time, so they notified Genua so that they could patch it. And so Genua put out a release that they had patched the vulnerable versions of the Genugate firewall. Also, they were telling the customers to make sure that they adhere to the necessary segmentation of their networks, and make sure that their login, the interface to log in for the admin panel, was segmented off. Another thing is, with it being vulnerable, they needed to be on the network. This is vulnerable. They couldn't get to it from the internet. The researchers had to be on the network in order to find out this vulnerability. But during this HTTP post that these researchers were using to pass off to the firewall, it allowed their authentication request, and it didn't check for any data. So, but they did a video of how the attack works, but they didn't go into very much detail because they didn't want hackers out on the internet to know the intricacies of how they manipulated this firewall. So what Genua is asking their users of the firewall, they want them to go out and get the patch that they released. They had 3 or 4 different patches out there, and if you see the article, it'll give you the different versions out there that they use. And another thing is this firewall is NATO restricted. So that means that they have to have certain safeguards in place to protect it from public release and disclosure. So this is another thing, that this firewall being, of such high importance and needing to be and have the security classification, it needed to be protected. So what most people don't understand is that as consumers, and when we purchase these firewalls, we expect for them to protect us, protect our networks. So that's what we're looking for. And when you think about, sometimes you have the developers, and when they're developing these admin panels, they're developing for comfort and not security. And when they're building this into these admin panels and the GUI interface for the firewalls and so forth, you want them to make sure that they put the right protocols in place, security, so that it's just as secure as the firewall protecting the network, rather than, you can log into this firewall just for your comfort's sake, instead of it being, secure all the way around.
Right. I mean, I think, when you look at these firewalls, and by the way, I mean, over the years and years, we've been, like, it's probably once a month that we do a story on some vendor that sells firewall technology. If it's not firewall, it's, it's VPN, it's, gateway services, it's whatever, you name it. If it's out there and they have a product, more than likely they're going to run across some sort of, problem, a vulnerability that is found in their product, right? I mean, it's just inevitable. As much as you spend in securing these devices, there's enough people that will go after them because, like you said, they are devices that are protecting companies' crown jewels. Right. So they're the things that people have to go through in order to get to those crown jewels. So they're going to be the things that are, sort of tested against the most. In this case, I think, as you said, I think, Kim, that, this particular exploit and how it presents itself, being available through, what did you say, the
admin
portal,
interface,
right?
Yeah,
right.
the admin
the interface, and, right, and which I'm assuming, because you're saying that it's not internet accessible, the vulnerability is not internet accessible. That means that these panels that they're offering up, which I think there was like 3 different types of panels that they offered up, which was interesting that they offered it up 3 different ways, but that they're all internal, right? So that means you have to get on the network first before you can actually get to the page so that you can launch your attack against it. So, at least from that perspective, you have but here on the other hand, playing devil's advocate, how hard is it for an attacker probably to get on the inside to do that?
Exactly. Yes.
Again, your mileage may vary.
Well, you have to think about your own experience at home. So you have a router, and it has an administrative interface. Now, you might not be able to hit that administrative interface from the internet. That's fine. But maybe you have one of these weird browser extensions that you've installed on your browser. That browser extension can certainly run inside your network and exploit some of these things. So there's many ways unfortunately, there's many ways for adversaries to get inside the network without these traditional things that we think about, like breaking the firewall or whatever. So even, when you're putting the systems out there, you actually have to segment your network in such a way that the use of the product or like the access to the interface, at least for enterprise and corporate, product, you can't get to it from the regular network. You have to be like on a completely separate network in order to affect a firewall policy change or something like that. Maybe there's a jump server or you have it locked down a certain way. But you definitely never want to make it too easy for an adversary to basically, create a browser extension that can admin the network or whatever on your behalf without you realizing it. I think this falls into this, like Manny mentioned, there's this whole class of vulnerabilities for other types of firewalls that are out there that we hear about often as well, like MikroTik. I think we've looked at it many times.
Zyzel,
There's a post-secure SSL, VPN-like appliance, and other things of this nature. There's like a ton of routers out there that kind of have similar techniques. And with a lot of these embedded systems, there's also, like they design the firewall to be like ultra secure. The guys working on the firewall piece, they're like pros at networking. They're pros in their craft. Then when it comes to the web interface for managing it, let's get the cheapest bidder.
Exactly.
Where's the guy who can build this on the cheap, or where's the developer shop that can get it out quick and as fast as possible? And I think unfortunately that's what sometimes creates these kinds of issues and conditions that allow them to be exploited. It's kind of like buying this like expensive car or something, and then putting like this gasket that leaks oil all over the place when you drive it, because the gasket was like poorly made. But the car is really nice, but this one gasket somewhere in the middle is just makes the car unusable. I think that's probably what ends up happening. But it's good to hear that they took care of the problem. They identified it, right, and they have a patch available for their customers. So that's a good thing.